I'm Timothy Long. I'm from Holdenville originally. I've lived in New York for 28 years, and I'm a classical musician and a member of the Creek tribe. Tulsa Opera is celebrating its 70th anniversary, and they're having a gala concert on Saturday night, and they asked me to come in and conduct it, so that's why I'm here. My mother, who is Choctaw and will be at the concert Saturday night, she grew up in a boarding school. Well, it was an orphanage, the Goodland Orphanage down in southeastern Oklahoma, and she had bad luck. I mean, she grew up there, and then while she was in high school there, she caught tuberculosis, and she ended up being quarantined at the Talihina Indian Hospital for a total of 5 years. It's before they had treatment for tuberculosis. And you know, with the Indians, they did experimental treatments. They tried out all these things, and she saw a lot of death, and a lot of her friends didn't make it out. But the thing that I benefited from, you know, from her sorrows, is that everybody listened to country and western music in this hospital, and she got sick of the twang. So she found a classical radio station, and when my sister and I were born, she only listened to Beethoven. So she listened to Beethoven symphonies, piano concertos, and piano sonatas, and that's the only music I heard until I was probably 5 or 6 when I started playing the piano. So really, my classical music came from having a native mother. If not for her, you know, I probably wouldn't have found this, because, you know, we weren't wealthy people, and there aren't many classical musicians in Holdenville either. So it was all completely due to her. I grew up playing, I don't know, maybe 10 instruments. I started piano when I was 3, and then I started saxophone in the 5th grade, and then flute, then oboe, then French horn. Then I played all the wind instruments, and then I taught myself violin. And when I was at OCU, I studied both piano and violin. And then I went to grad school in piano, because I felt like, well, I may as well focus on something. And I discovered at a music festival in Aspen when I was a lot younger that I loved opera. I got a fellowship in opera, in playing piano for opera. And I went back to school, and I got the opera fellowship there. And then it just really suited me well. So I started coaching at Juilliard. I moved to New York, and then I started doing professional gigs. And then I was hired at Aspen to coach opera, and we were doing an American premiere of Thomas Addis's Powder Her Face. And the conductor, who was the composer, Thomas Addis, had visa trouble. So they called me in and said, "You're the only person who knows this, and we have an orchestra rehearsal tomorrow." So I suddenly had to conduct an orchestra rehearsal of a very complex piece, and I'd never conducted. And so that was exciting. And then I got a few other opportunities. And you know, it's really weird when you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes it's easier. And then you get to this point where you start realizing where you need to educate yourself, and you have to take a dip and start learning everything that you've realized needs to be learned. So I don't know, it just sort of happened organically, strangely enough. I'm not a terribly ambitious person, so I was never calculating, how do I do this, how do I do that? I just loved music all the time. And I still perform on piano as well, and perform as a conductor, and I teach, so it still encompasses my life the same way it did when I was 5 years old. In that sense, it doesn't feel like it's changed at all. I suppose there is a sense of getting lost in it, in that the rest of the world ceases to exist. But with classical music, there are a lot of difficulties. You know, with a lot of pop music, the reason that I think it's easy to get into it is because it's a little bit, you know, the beat. There's a beat that happens over and over and over, kind of like a powwow. I mean, it's always there. So you know when it's gonna fall, you know what to expect, and it fulfills your expectations. With classical music, you'll have a beat going like this, and then it stops. And it's like, you know, when those powwow songs, when the drum just stops suddenly and everybody has to stop. Same way with the orchestra, so you can't completely lose yourself. You always have to be aware as a conductor, visually, orally, even physically. You have to be aware. Every little motion that you make can either cause somebody to play or to not play, or it can confuse them. So you have to be aware on many different levels, while at the same time, hopefully opening yourself up, like Jason was saying, to sort of lose yourself in the music and to enjoy it and to really connect emotionally. It can be fantastic.